Good evening. Time is now 7 o'clock, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Ms. Pollier.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. Clerk, please call the roll.
Greenberg.
Here.
Hicks.
Here.
Mako.
Here.
Pollier.
Here.
Chapaka is absent. Suriano.
Here.
Tamarkin.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Next agenda item, any additions or corrections to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, approval of minutes. Do you have a motion to approve the minutes from the November 20th, 2024 meeting?
So moved by Hicks.
I have a motion by Mr. Hicks. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second by Ms. Pollier. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Hicks.
Yes.
Pollier.
Yes.
Mako.
Yes.
Suriano.
Abstain.
Tamarkin.
Yes.
Greenberg.
Yes.
Motion passes. Our next agenda item is going to be the swearing in of applicants and speakers, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Roth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are now at the public hearing portion of the meeting. The public hearing will operate as follows. Administrative staff will make a presentation or comment on the application. The applicant or their representative may then make a presentation or comment on the application. The applicant has 10 minutes to present, and additional time may be requested. Permission is at the discretion of the chair. Public comment will then be open for 3 minutes allowed per speaker. Additional time may be requested. Permission is at the discretion of the chair. Speakers must complete a speaker slip and come to the podium and state their name and address. The applicant will then be given 10 minutes to comment. Additional time may be requested. Permission is at the discretion of the chair. If there is more than one application pending for a particular address, the presentation on each application may be consolidated and presented as one. At this time, will persons wishing to present testimony this evening please rise and raise your right hand to be sworn in? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, state I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. We now come to our application on public comment. Our first case is going to be a variance case, and I'll read it into the record. We have case V-0031-2024 to consider a variance application to vary Chapter 1103.07E, Development Standards of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Gahanna for property located at 683 Vivian Court, Parcel ID 025-007564, current zoning R1, large lot residential, Bill Graver, applicant. And I will turn it over to Ms. Kapka for a presentation.
One moment, I'm having technical difficulties connecting to the screen.
The ghost of Michael Blackford.
Okay, the first application is a variance at 683 Vivian Court. The zoning map shows that the zoning for this property and the surrounding properties is R1, which is large lot residential. The site is also located at the end of a cul-de-sac. The applicant is requesting approval of a variance to allow an addition within a rear yard setback. The addition would be 576 square feet and attached to the rear of the existing house. The standard rear yard setback for all properties zoned R1 is 25 feet, and the addition is between 19 and 25 feet from the west or rear property line. The previous zoning code had a reduced setback of 15 feet for attached accessory structures. However, that language was removed from the current code, and all additions are now subject to principal structure setbacks instead. The applicant states they have been planning the addition since 2023, and at that time, the rear yard setback was 15 feet, which is why the addition was planned within the current setback. Here's a site plan where you can see the frontage along Vivian Court to the east and the addition is shown in blue to the rear of the existing structure. So here you can see that 19 to 25 foot setback as well. And then here are some elevations of the addition for some more context. That east elevation in the bottom right-hand corner is the front elevation of the home. The variance is being requested to Chapter 1103.07E, which is the large lot residential chapter. That states that the principal structure must be at least 25 feet from the rear property line. As shown in the site plan, the addition is approximately 19 feet from the rear property line at its closest point. This is the standard variance criteria that must be met for the application to be approved. The variance is not likely to result in substantial damage to the character of the neighborhood. It's not likely to result in damage to adjoining properties. It's not likely to affect the delivery of government services. It's not likely to result in environmental impacts greater than what's typical. The variance is necessary for the economical use of the property, which cannot be achieved through another method, and the variance is not likely to undermine the objectives of the land use plan. Staff recommends approval of the variance as submitted. As mentioned, the addition was compliant with the 2023 zoning code during its initial planning stage, and as shown on the site plan, the addition is not parallel to the rear property line, so it's not entirely within the 25-foot setback. However, it's worth mentioning there is no fence on this property or many of the adjoining properties, so the addition would likely be visible from some of the neighboring yards. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kapka. We'll now open it up to public comment. Would the applicant care to speak? If you could state your name, address, and relationship to the project.
Yes, my name is Bill Graver. I'm with Stone Pillar Construction, the general contractor for the project. My address is 6871 Temperance Point Street in Westerville, Ohio. As the staff has recommended and went over the case, we did start the project and planning in 2023 when the current zoning code would allow this to happen. We submitted for our permit in all good faith, and then actually got to the point where permit was in the process of being issued, and then it was brought up that zoning had been codified in April or May of this past year, and resulting in the request for the variance. We fully are trying to be in compliance with everything. We tried. This was nothing intentional on anybody's part, just a matter of adhering to the current zoning that is now and has been codified. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we did receive one speaker slip, so I'll recognize that person, Linda Mendel. Again, if you could come, state your name and address.
Linda Mendel, 678 Audra Court. We live in the house immediately behind the Jahans, so that our backyard faces their backyard. We understand that they're asking for this variance so they can put a room addition that supposedly is 19 feet from the property line. We're asking that this be denied. We have two reasons that we're asking that it be denied. First, we think it's going to impact the character of the neighborhood and our enjoyment of our yard. And secondly, we think it's going to impact our property values when someday the house needs to be sold. One of the reasons we picked this neighborhood, and we've been here for decades, and we love this neighborhood, is the open spaces around the houses. You mentioned that there's no perimeter fence. Well, actually, our deed restrictions forbid perimeter fences, because one of the things that this neighborhood was meant to preserve is open spaces around the houses. It's going to change what we see all the windows along the back of our house. And of course, that's our most immediate concern, but someday we recognize we're going to have to sell this house, and having this room addition looming up in our backyard is probably going to give pause to whatever potential buyers are looking at the house, because they're going to want the same thing we wanted, the beautiful green open spaces in this neighborhood. And like I mentioned, there are deed restrictions. They're not really at issue here because we don't really have a functioning community association at the time. But the tenor of the deed restrictions were to prohibit outbuildings, to prohibit fences, all along the lines to keep the open spaces around the house. I'm just mentioning that we all knew or should have known when we bought into this neighborhood that that's the character of the neighborhood we're buying into. And I'm sorry to say this, but I have a bit of a trust problem with the contractor. When the construction started in August, we didn't know what was happening. Nobody spoke to us. And I thought it was some kind of repair. And then at one point it became apparent that it was more than a repair. And so I came out in the yard, I'm looking at these ditches, and George was also in the yard, and he said to me, it's perfectly okay, they're allowed to build within 15 feet of the property line. Well, that didn't seem right to me because there's nothing else in the neighborhood anywhere close. So I went inside, I Googled, I found the zoning that said 25 feet. I called the zoning office, and the zoning office was like, what? There's no permit. And so they sent somebody out there. I mean, I didn't know there was no permit. I just called because I was confused because George had told me 15 feet. And then when I saw the zoning ordinance, I didn't understand what was happening. But we have two issues here. First, construction was started without a permit. And second, you would think a contractor would be aware of a potential change in a zoning ordinance. So even though at this point, do I even know that what he filed is what's going to be built? And of course, it can't really be verified until there's walls and you can get a laser measure in there. So I'm just not comfortable with this. But mainly, our main point is that we have a beautiful backyard and a beautiful deck, and we love to sit outside and look at the birds and the trees, and this is going to be looming in our yard. And there's really no way to block it out because we have a deed restriction that says we can't build a privacy fence. So I am asking that it be denied and that the Gahannas revisit their plans and build a smaller room addition. That would be my wish. So thank you for letting me speak.
Okay, thank you. If the applicant would like to give a rebuttal?
I would, thank you. I do appreciate your comments. I will take some exception to some of the references about our construction and project. We, again, as I stated, this was planned prior to the code being changed. Kelly from the zoning office, she did make approval on this. She did tell me that she caught the 19-foot after we had gotten approval on the project. Had this been approved in April, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. We'd be building this and it would be under roof at this present time. So the zoning change is for current zoning projects that are affected in the city of Gahanna. This development has been around for 30+ years. We're more than happy to share any kind of dimensions and measurements that the client would like, or the person would like to see, but we did not do anything against any of the code. We followed the strict rules, and now we're here trying to defend a issue that basically is something that happened in a timing, pure timing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll now close public comment and open up to questions from the commission. Starting on my left, Ms. Pollier.
It's time to go first. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I maybe will ask the administration first. I just have some questions about the permitting, I guess, discrepancy that, I'm sorry, what was your name again? That Linda brought up. Or can you speak to that as to was there a permit issued? Was there not?
So the permit was filed after the new zoning code went into effect. So at the time of the filing, the 25-foot rear yard setback was in effect. What happened was the permit was never issued and they began construction. So they had a permit in, but began construction before they received the final permit. In regards to Kelly's issue, she had noticed the 25-foot setback at the northern part of the addition and not the 19-foot, but she caught the issue before the permit had been issued. And we actually found out about it because they had began construction, and I believe there was code enforcement action
Okay.
on that.
So they began construction without a permit, and then this was actually brought to our attention due to a code enforcement issue? And they
Correct.
went out to, okay. Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Polly. Mr. Hicks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Graver, my questions are also along the timing. During your statement, it sounded like, and I want to ask for your clarification, was it your understanding that a permit was filed for under the old zoning? Okay, it doesn't sound like that is what happened, though. It sounds like a permit was applied for under the new zoning. So the timing, I'm trying to get my arms around. What's your understanding of that? If you could clarify it, if you could come up to the mic, please. Your understanding of the,
Understanding that the permit action had been dealt with, and there was conversations between the client and with the city of Gahanna over and the application was filed with the architect. You know, as the GC, we just pulled it and we received the application and permit. So that was done prior to. We started a project, but it was never we didn't know that there was a zoning clearance issue at all. And yes, and it was brought up, and immediately we filed for the variance application. It was not like that we intentionally did anything on this.
yeah, I mean, good faith and intent. I certainly can understand
Right.
your position, but it doesn't sound like a permit was applied for.
The permit was applied for, yes, and it goes through the process, and if you look at the history of it, when I spoke to Kelly, when we first got notice that the permit was pulled back, because it had cleared through your portal all the steps ready for issuance. So, and then it was pulled back because, and as she commented, she saw the 25-foot, did not notice the 19-foot, and it just went through. So she did tell me that, yes, it was an error on their part that pushed it and allowed it to go through the steps of the process.
So again, it's your position that your client applied for the permit in a timely manner
Yes.
under the old code.
Yes.
It just wasn't issued perhaps until,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah.
What construction has occurred on this
The
project?
foundation, or the footer has been in dugout, and that's it. We haven't put any block or anything in.
What is the intended use of the addition?
Bedroom. And
Okay.
It's not an outbuilding, it's not anything that violates a deed restriction whatsoever. It's attached to the house. And, yeah, so it goes.
Is the family growing, or is it in-laws coming to live, or?
That I
Can you
can't.
share? Okay, but
That-
it's a bedroom
right.
addition. Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
We'll circle back.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Greenberg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions. One is for you, the contractor, is that the addition look just like the house?
Yes.
There's no changes? It's going to be painted, same colors? or
Same colors, everything. It's a first floor master for our clients, as opposed to having the stairs and the master upstairs.
So it's only a one-story? Okay. How high does it go? Maddie, you got a drawing?
I don't know if the dimension shows there. Like a cathedral ceiling. Like 11, 12 feet.
Okay. Question for the city. during your review, we have 6 items before we grant a variance. Was there any of those 6 items that caused the city any concern that they weren't being addressed? Of A through F?
Of the variance criteria?
Correct.
No.
Okay. Mr. Chair, that's all my questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Mr. Siriano?
Yes, quick question. Just clarification on the construction that started. You said foundations have been dug out? Is just the trenches pour?
We filled it with straw and that. We filled this with straw to kind of keep everything so that if we get approval, we can begin construction again.
But no footings have been poured or concrete block laid or?
No block at all.
Is this addition replacing anything in the back,
No,
like a deck or anything like that?
no.
And just for clarification, it looks like the north corner or the northwest corner is 25.3 feet away, and the southwest corner is 19, right?
Correct.
And is there any, the deed restrictions have been brought up. Is there anything on the property currently that's violating any deed restrictions?
No.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Siriano. Mr. Tamarkin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To carry on the side yard, we're 20 foot from the property line. So with the new zoning code, the side setback is still 15 feet.
Correct.
So we're 15 feet on the side, and the new code moved from 15 to 25, effective at some point this summer.
Correct. I will mention that the rear yard setback for primary structures has always been 25 feet for this zoning district. We just used to specifically call out attached accessory structures and had that at 15 instead of 25. So that's the one change that makes this non-compliant with the new code.
And would you deem an addition, a permanent addition to the house, a bedroom, an accessory structure, or?
No,
So this really is not an accessory structure,
correct. It's considered part of the primary structure.
which means the old zoning code was also 15. It's always been 15 foot for this.
Under the old code, it was 15, but under the new code, it's 25.
For the permanent structure.
Yeah, we don't have any references to attached accessory structures in the new code. We just consider that part of the primary structure now.
Okay, that's the extent of my questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Markin. So I have a couple questions. And again, just want to, again, get it straight in my mind, the timeline that we're dealing with here. So the permit was applied for, but it was never issued. Is that correct?
Correct.
And in between so it was applied for and then construction started, but there was never an assigned permit issued by the city before?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to, again, make that clear.
Yep.
Then I had a question for Ms. Mendel. If you can come up. This will be a real easy question. So one thing to state for the record, you did send us via email some photos, some
Yes.
additional photos. Just want to reference that for the record. Is there any, does your deed restrictions, does it allow, I'm trying to make sense of what you've submitted here. Does it allow any type of plantings in terms of trees or shrubberies or other vegetative materials to be put near the property line to offer some buffering? Or is it just strictly fences?
I think the only restriction is on fences, like building, like there, I don't think there's anything about vegetation.
Okay.
I didn't bring a copy with me.
That's okay. You answered my question. So that was the extent of my questions. Ms. Polly, you had a follow-up?
I do. I guess my confusion lies with the contractor. If you want to step back up here, please. Sorry to make you keep going back and forth. My confusion lies with the timing, obviously. Why did you start construction when the permit had not yet been issued? Why didn't you wait for the permit to be issued?
I would say that we felt that there wasn't any issues with it. And from a standpoint of, I had communications with the office. It was moving through the process. We dug a hole, and, you know, we're like, okay, if something happens, but I never thought that the zoning, the setback, it went through architectural, it went through all the planning. There was communications with your office and the clients. I never had any reason to doubt that there was a setback issue whatsoever. Otherwise, I would have.
But just in general, even if there wasn't a setback issue, let's say, wouldn't it just make more sense to wait until the permit was actually issued before beginning
In
construction?
a reality world, sure, but in the construction field, it happens all the time. I mean, I'm not gonna tell you anything different, but, you know, the backyard of this property, there's pine trees, and we're happy to make sure that that's there, but there was no ill will or intent. The code changed, and it was a period of a month or two that it didn't get processed from our end or their end or whomever's end, but, so we're just here trying to rectify the fact.
Okay, understood. Thank you. That's all I have,
Mr.
Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Polly. Mr. Hicks?
Thank you, Mr. Graver. Is it fair to say that you relied on a verbal confirmation from the city?
I did.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yep.
That was it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Greenberg?
I have a question for you as well. So when was the first, I'm sorry to make you run.
No.
You're getting a good exercise now. Was there any, when did you first learn that the neighbors had concerns?
When they called code enforcement,
Okay, when was that?
September?
It was in late August.
Okay,
I mean, it was immediately after I had that conversation with George, which I think was late August.
who is George?
Mr. John.
Okay, so my question is, after that time, was there any consideration by your client to revise the addition to comply with the new code?
And that did come up, but I would say that based off the conversation and the comments, she wouldn't have liked what we were going to revise. We could have taken it back and gone straight across the back, come closer to the side setback, shrunk it.
No, I think that would have been awesome. I mean, that's actually what I asked.
If we came across, narrowed rectangle, so, as you commented, this is not an accessory structure, it's part of the house. I could have gone 2 stories. So there, you know, you have all those different options, so it could have been a different project altogether, yes.
And just to follow up, after that conversation in August, were there any other conversations?
No, and we didn't have those with them. We had.
With your client?
Yes, and we said, let's go through the variance process, because at the end of the day, you're talking, it was 6 feet at an angle, so if, in fact, it's not a full 6 feet. So you look at it from that standpoint, is taking from the standpoint of the zoning and what the codification of it was and what the true intent is of that zoning code. And if it's to clear up some language of an accessory structure or not, that's fine. But when the project was started in 2023, the code existed to build that in its entirety. With a swipe of a pen, it changed, and now we're here to discuss the variance on it. So I do apologize on the timeliness of it. It's not an intentional type of a project to be vindictive or anything like that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Any other questions? I had another follow-up question for me. So I'm sure that you've probably thought of this, but would it be feasible to make it compliant?
No.
Or have you thought of that?
No, yeah, well, I mean, we thought about it. We, you know, to get square footage, we could squeeze it and then go over towards the other side or come closer to the side setback. I mean, there's, you know, creative things to do that, but I feel that that's an unfair approach just because of the, again, this wasn't that we built this and did not have input from staff and the city of its project. So I guess you asked me the question, I'll be honest with you.
We appreciate the honesty. Okay, that was my follow-up question. Any other questions from the commission?
I have one.
Yes,
I'm
John.
looking at Mrs. Mendel's pictures here. If you were to take the northern edge of the property, because it looks like we're missing all these pine trees, all the pine trees are staying intact, all the trees.
Yes.
And it looks like there are a few that are pretty close to the foundation. So I imagine if that northern edge were to creep anymore, it's going to impact those trees. Is that correct? Was that fair to say?
The northern edge, so the top.
It would be the
25
the edge parallel to the rear edge of the addition parallel to the house. So I'm sorry, not the northern edge, the western edge.
Oh, the western edge?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you did that, it could impact those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Randall. Okay, seeing no further questions, do we have a motion to approve case V-0031-2024?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve V-0031-2024.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Greenberg. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Ms. Pollyea. Any discussion? Ms. Polly?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. For me, the issue is the timing. And I just think that, and I understand what the contractor says with regard to how projects work in reality, and I understand that there might have been a verbal representation that was made, but for me, the issue is that the permit wasn't actually issued before construction was started. And for that reason, I will be voting no. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Polly. Mr. Hicks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is an unfortunate situation where, as has already been described, the applicant relied on a conversation as opposed to something that was in writing, that was official. Whenever we consider variance applications, it's number 5 that I always get hung up on, and that is the variance is necessary for the economical use of the property, and such economical use of the property is not easily achieved through some other method other than a variance. So I always question, is it necessary, and is there another solution? Well, there are other solutions. You'd rather not do them, and I get that, but there are ways to make it compliant with the code that exists today. And based on the site plan, this addition, although it encroaches on the setback, it does not encroach, to my understanding, on any easements. So all that in consideration, I'll be in support of the variance application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Greenberg?
You know, I as a homeowner, I sympathize with folks that, you know, other neighbors are doing things that the people don't like. And I always want to encourage applicants and anyone in opposition, like we've done in other cases, to get together, talk through what's being done, and communicate, so there can be a resolution that hopefully everyone could agree to. And I would like to have seen that occur here. There was opportunities to make that happen. So at the moment, I'm not in favor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Mr. Ciano?
I'm going to be in favor of the variance, given the communication with the city, understanding that there wasn't an official, permit in writing, given the oversight. But given that this was planned and under the old code, and looking at the 5 criteria for variance, I mean, we're really talking about a sliver of the back face of this addition. I do not think that it has a material impact on what the spirit of that setback is. Actually, in looking at the photos, the fact that this is maintaining those pine trees and using, they're essentially going to be a buffer for that property. They're actually shielding it in some ways. The footings in these photos essentially are threading the needle between the property line, the tree line, and the deck. And so I don't, if I'm looking at an economical use of this property or this backyard, given the acuteness of a lot of the corners, it really does make a lot of sense in terms of where this is located. So for those reasons, I'm in favor of the variance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Soriano. Mr. Tamarkin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will also be in favor. I think, being caught here between the 2 zoning codes, the new and the old, certainly when the plan was devised, looking at the old code, we wouldn't have even been here tonight. It just would have happened. And then with the new code coming into existence, unfortunately with bad timing and without filing, the building permit on a timely basis caused us to be here. But I agree with Mr. Soriano. I think, number one, it's not, we still have the 19 foot to the property line, but also if this was to be redesigned, and it's kind of unfortunate the way this house sits on this lot because of the cul-de-sac at a little bit of an angle, for this to be redesigned and made more rectangular or taken over to the side yard, my guess is it would still be built, but it would be built in not as feasible of a way, and therefore I'll be in support.
Thank you, Mr. Markin. I'm also going to be in support of this begrudgingly. Typically I'm a real stickler for the rules and regulations. I would kind of remind the contractor that even though you have a verbal okay until something is issued in paper, in my mind, it doesn't exist. So I would just that's the one thing I, just want to kind of drive that point home. I'm also in agreement with the way that staff had outlined their rationale for recommending approval. And I really cannot disagree with that. So I will be voting yes. All right, so with that, clerk, please call the roll.
Greenberg,
No.
Pollyea,
No.
Mako,
Yes.
Soriano,
Yes.
Tamarkin,
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Motion passes. The next item we have tonight is going to be a development plan application. I'll read this into the record. We have case DP-0002-2024 to consider a development plan application for property located at 425 South Hamilton Road, parcel ID numbers 025-002205, 025-012950, and 025-000406, current zoning RI, restricted institutional, Shepherd Christian School, Cindy DeMassa, applicant. And I will recognize Ms. Kapka for a presentation. Sorry.
This is a major development plan at 425 South Hamilton Road, which is the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene site. The property is zoned restricted institutional. The applicant is requesting approval of a major development plan for a school addition at Shepherd Church of the Nazarene. The project includes 2 separate additions to the front of the existing school building. They are both around 3,500 square feet, and all of the exterior materials for the additions will match the existing building. The additions are also approximately 134 to 138 feet from the closest front property line, And even with the added 7,000 square feet, all parking requirements are still met on site. Here's a site plan. The existing school building is on the southern portion of the site in blue, and both additions are shown in red. And then you can see the 135 and 138 foot setbacks from along Hamilton Road and the I-270 on-ramp. And then here is an aerial view of the site. So here you can see the existing mature foliage to the south and east of the building. So this building is almost entirely screened from the right-of-way. Here's a rendering of the front of the addition, so you can see the matching materials with the existing building. Here are the renderings that were submitted. The east elevation is what would face Hamilton Road. Then here is the major development plan criteria. I believe this is the first major development plan that we've had go before Planning Commission, so I'll read through the criteria. The development plan meets the applicable development standards of the zoning ordinance. It's in accord with appropriate plans for the area. It would not have undesirable effects on the surrounding area, and it would be in keeping with the existing land use character and physical development potential of the area. Staff recommends approval of the major development plan as submitted. The project meets all zoning code requirements with 0 variances, and it matches all of the existing development on the site. And as shown in the aerial view, the areas between the additions in Hamilton Road and the I-270 ramp are heavily wooded and screen the majority of the building from view. I turn things back to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kapka. We'll now open the public comment. Would the applicant care to comment? Again, if you could state your name, address, and relationship to the project.
Sure. I'm Mike Fluhart. My address is 3295 Farmbrook Drive in Grove City, Ohio, and I'm the head of school at Shepherd Christian School. Just general comment, Lord's blessed us with some solid growth this last few years. We've got to the point that I can no longer continue to grow without the expansion. So we're adding a total of 8 classrooms. They'll be roughly the same size as the existing classrooms. There will be 4 on each one of the wings. As you saw in the drawing, our building's currently in H. We're just making the one end of the H longer with 4 additional classrooms. What this will let us do is continue to grow. And then also in our planning, or part of the strategic plan, is to offer more opportunities for students even within the community. One of the classrooms is going to be designated as a career-focused room, and we're going to be able to open that up to the community that I don't have room for that type of support. So that's the big thing, is just to handle the additional growth.
Okay.
Questions?
I'm sure we'll have some.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I did not receive any speaker forms, so I will turn it over to the commission for some questions. Ms. Pollier.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As far as the school, what kind of a school is this? Is this a parochial school? Is this a?
Yeah, it's a Christian nonprofit. We're chartered by the Ohio Department of Education.
Okay, that was my question.
Been at the site, not necessarily in this building, for roughly 27 years.
And what are the grade levels at the school?
Just this past year, we added 8th grade, so it's pre-K through 8th grade.
And where do your students typically come from? All over the city?
All over. I just finished a report for the state, and 9 different school districts feed into Shepherd. We've got a Gahanna population base. We have a number of East Side families from Columbus City schools, and then we've got a strong pocket from Whitehall, would be probably my 3 major. That being said, this last year, we picked up 15 families from Reynoldsburg schools.
And you're at capacity at this point? With the
Yeah, I
classrooms?
think I was figuring the other day I could take 6 students.
So I'm just looking here. So you're adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 classrooms.
Yes.
What grade levels, or has that not been determined?
Well, yeah, we're going to move primarily the middle school that's spread out between So we had to take over some of the church classrooms, Sunday school classrooms. We had to move our specials. We have 6 different specials as a school. A lot of that had to move over to, on the church building side. They're great rooms, but they're small. They're more of a traditional school or church room. So this will let us move all the middle school into that. Plus, we've got a very strong STEM innovation base. Is a lot of what occurs in the classroom. It lets us put, one of the rooms is going to be an innovation lab. And we're trying to partner with some outside agencies like Ashland and all to help us.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
That's it for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Polly. Mr. Hicks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Fluhart,
Yes,
welcome.
thank you.
I'm not sure if you were here 1 year ago.
Yes.
When Shep Naz came before us, asking for permission for a temporary structure.
Yeah, well, yes, I was. I was the one that spoke that night. We didn't end up adding the modular. It became regrettably a timing thing. From the point we applied, the state had funds available to pay for that modular unit. And after we got through the entire process, I put all the paperwork in, and they said, just kidding, we don't apply, we don't pay for that anymore. So since we'd only got the 3-year variance, which we were fine with, because we knew we'd be coming back for this project, I couldn't see investing $150,000 in a 3-year project.
So my question for you, you've already
Yes.
answered, is what happened to the temporary structure? And
We
the
took
answer-
over more church rooms that I wasn't planning.
Okay.
You know, like
'Cause
my music room is on a stage.
Because my concern at that
Sure.
time was that, based on our Gahanna schools,
Right.
when a temporary structure comes, it never leaves.
Yeah.
And again, the Shep Naz said that it would. So you've answered the question. It never showed up.
It
So,
never showed up.
I'll be completely in support of the project. So none of my questions, please don't take them.
Okay, no, I
So,
understand.
Actually, that was my only question.
Okay,
Temporary
good.
structure. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Greenberg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How many additional students will be able to come to Shepherd?
Yeah, we grew this last year 100 students, which put us at 322. With the additional classrooms, we should be able to put in at least another 75 students. Because some of the growth is actually moving back out of the church building that we're using. So roughly 75 more students.
So if you continue to be successful, as you have been, what happens when those are filled?
We'll be back.
Okay. No further questions. I also am in support.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Mr. Soriano?
No questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soriano. Mr. Tamarkin?
No questions from me either.
Thank you, Mr. Tamarkin. I just have a couple questions. So, and again, just for clarification purposes, that these additions are going to match the existing building?
Yes, yeah,
correct?
exactly.
And there's not going to be any impact to the vehicular circulation of the parking lot? So that's going to be a non-issue?
Right, yeah, we won't be into the parking lot at all.
Okay. And again, they're going to be in compliance with the number of parking spaces with this addition?
Correct.
Good. And then, looking at your site plan, there's a proposed shelter house. I guess it would be on the northeast portion of the property.
Right.
Speak a little bit more to that. Is that just going to be for storage and?
No, it's and if you can talk shelter house, or I can. I don't know if you're Pastor Paul. Yeah, no, it's an open air shelter house for picnics or gatherings like that that'll be open. It's partially for the school, but it's also for the community or for the church as well.
Okay. And again, looking at the site plan, it looks like that's not going to really impact much. It looks like it's going to be kind of set back up far away from the structure, correct?
It's across the parking lot. It's not in the parking lot at all. We're not losing any parking spaces.
Okay. That answered my questions. Okay. Any other additional questions? Mr. Hicks?
I did think of another question. So the shelter house.
Yeah.
The pastor's not going to lead like a rock and roll band.
Well, that's what I'm voting for.
Okay.
You know, so a 60s, 70s era. No, I don't think he is.
Is it wired for speakers, for sound, the shelter house?
It's going to be wired for electric. I don't know that we're putting speakers, because it's an open air, so I don't know.
Will it be used for like seating?
Oh, there's not.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hicks. Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, I would like to make a motion. Do we have a motion to approve case DP-0002-2024?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve item DP-0002-2024.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Soriano. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Ms. Pollier. Any discussion? Ms. Pollier?
I will be in support of the application. I don't have any further comments at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Pollier. Mr. Hicks?
One additional comment. I know when Shep Naz was here before us last time and the temporary structure was proposed, one of my colleagues was commenting the lack of windows. So it's nice to see that there'll be nice open and airy sunlight for the windows in the addition. So again, I'll be in support of it.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Greenberg?
No further questions.
Mrs. Soriano?
I'll be in support per staff recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Soriano. Mr. Markin?
I'll also be in support. It's always good to see growth within our community. And I think good, healthy schools, good, healthy parishes are always good for a community. So good to see.
Thank you. And the only comment I have is that I will also be in support. I think this site plan looks good. Some good thought went into it, so I'll be in support. So with that, clerk, please call the roll.
Soriano,
Yes.
Pollier,
Yes.
Greenberg,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Mako,
Yes,
Tamarkin.
Yes.
motion passes. Next agenda item, any unfinished business? Seeing none, any new business? Official reports? Assistant City Attorney.
Nothing to report at this time.
Director of Planning, or?
A couple of quick updates. It looks like we'll have one agenda item for the December 18th meeting. And then this past Monday, City Council approved the zoning amendments, so those will be going into effect on January 2nd.
Good deal. Council Liaison. Madam Mayor is not here tonight, and I have no official actions or reports this time. Any additional correspondence we've received?
No, sir.
Okay, seeing none, poll members for comment. Ms. Pollier.
I don't have any comments tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Pollier. Mr. Hicks?
Since Maddie cut you off, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I do not. Thanks.
So those of us that were able to attend the beam signing of 825 Tech Center, that was pretty neat. So looking forward to that building being opened in, I think, 2026 was the target date. And our names are on a beam in what will be the senior center.
Someday you can sit there and look at your name.
Some of us sooner than others.
Yes.
I was not able to attend. Was there a tree on the beam?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that's it's like a Nordic tradition for, I think it's for luck. Yeah.
Oh, I was wondering
We
about
were
that.
waiting to see if it was going to fall.
Yeah.
It was attached to the beam, because it was swinging and didn't fall
I
off.
was wondering why that was there.
That's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I don't have any other comments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Greenberg?
Well, I couldn't get my signature on there because Mr. Hicks had John Hancock really big. No other
Should have been early.
Mrs. Soriano?
No comments from me?
Mr. Markin?
No comments from me.
I just had a quick comment. I went by the Central Park development. things are moving there. It's wonderful to see. So, good deal. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Those apartments are going.